does Lorna ever wear a shamadan? Because I was told that was kind of, at one point, traditional. Maybe, I don't know if it's fallen out of favor now.
Actually, I haven't asked Lorna specifically if she has worn a shamadan in a wedding. I know people do still wear them. I mean, you can certainly buy them there. But at the same time, you can also buy like American tribal style costumes there now, so that doesn't really mean anything. Like I know a friend from Britain specifically went to Egypt so she could get a shamadan. I'll have to ask her if she wears them now, or if people would expect.
I just wondered, because like with the wedding, with the procession, and do you guys know what the shamadan is?
No.
It's the big candelabra that the dancers wear on their head. It's kind of like this strappy helmet that you put on, and then there's this candelabra. And I was told traditionally, like the dancer would dance in front, illuminating the way for the bride and the groom, along with the musicians.
Okay.
So
well, actually, that question I can answer, and the answer is, belly dancing in Egypt is an extremely expensive thing. So if you can hire a belly dancer, then you can put down some serious bang for that, basically, if you can hire one, especially to do the procession. Otherwise, you'll just have musicians. So that might be one reason why these people only have musicians. I don't know necessarily if they would wear a shamadan now. You know, it might be the case that because it's not really necessary to have one, it's just fallen out of favor. But I can ask. I have people I can ask.
Is that just in Egypt or all over the Middle East? Because I don't remember seeing them.
Yeah, I guess maybe it is.
I was thinking specifically Egypt, but that's just who I heard it from, or where it referenced to.
It might be more specific to Egypt. Did you have a question?
No, I just needed to know what the shamadan was.
Yes, Mark.
In your research, have you found, does the belly dance traditions in Egypt, do they communicate different kinds of meanings or messages than the belly dance that might take place in other parts of the Middle East? Is there a regional component to what the dance, the message that it sends?
Excellent question. Certainly there are different regional folk dances. Like in Egypt, as I said, there's the Saidi dance, and there's other dances that are done specifically in Egypt that a non-Egyptian wouldn't do even if they knew about it. And certainly, like for example, Lorna, because she works in Egypt on the Nile Pharaohs, she refuses to do the Khaliji dance, which is the dance from Saudi Arabia. And it's a dance that involves a lot of flipping of your hair back and forth and around. And she won't do that because even if Saudi Arabians, for example, are on vacation in Cairo and they're on her boat and they come and request it, she's like, no. You're here in Egypt and you're going to see an Egyptian dance. That's her response, basically. And there's a lot of regional, what would you call it? Infighting, basically. And regional, I don't want to say mistrust, but certainly people have their own traditions and they're very proud of their traditions and they don't want to be associated with other people's traditions. And also in Cairo specifically, in Egypt specifically, it's a very popular vacation spot for Saudi Arabians who can't, for example, go to Europe. And as a result of this, anytime you're in a situation where there are people that don't have a lot of money and there are people that are coming in and they're perceived as being able to buy anything they want, there's resentment. So Saudi Arabians are not popular in Egypt, and therefore their dance is not popular with Egyptians. So, I mean, Khaliji is a beautiful dance, and there's a lot of beautiful music that goes along with it, but you won't find an Egyptian doing it. You're next?
Yeah. Does the average Egyptian person learn to belly dance? Does everybody know it a little bit? Or is that just something special like in America, someone goes ballet, the rest of us don't?
No, I think that it's a very common thing that people do in their homes, and they wouldn't even really consider themselves having learned to dance specifically. It's just something that you do socially. It's like,
I like the salsa.
Yeah, I mean, one person actually, I was having a conversation with someone and I was trying to describe, when I am in Egypt and I try and tell them that I'm there to study dance, they don't understand, and he said, yeah, it's like going to someone and saying that you're studying knives and forks. It's just, you wouldn't study that, it's just normal, It's very difficult to find, for example, classes for dance in Cairo. People come there and they're, like students who aren't specifically coming for dance, like college students who've gone there for a semester abroad or something, they get all excited, they're like, oh, I'm going to learn the belly dance. I mean, like, where do you think you're going to do that? There's no schools, there's no classes. I mean, you can go and get private lessons very easily, but mostly what happens is, you go to a party, your grandma's dancing, all of your aunts are dancing, all your cousins are dancing, so you're dancing, And for the it's interesting because they can all dance just as well as the girls, but they would never admit that they were actually dancing. It's very funny. Like they'll dance, but they won't admit that they know how to dance. So I hope that answers your question. Anyone else does?
I've always learned that having a pair of shoes as a dancer was a big deal. It was a sign that, you know, you were a good dancer, you were getting paid, and you were wearing shoes. I noticed Lorna wasn't wearing them. So and especially because it is like a, you know, a nightclub type of atmosphere. I don't know, do you know why she does or doesn't? Is it because she's on a boat, or just because?
I've never specifically asked Lorna that question. I can tell you I've definitely been in other situations and all those people were wearing shoes. But I think probably it's because the boat is small and it's unlikely that the dance floor in the time that she's on it is going to get really messed up or anything, like it's going to get, anything dangerous is going to be there. She might actually, I remember her talking about dancing with shoes other times, so it might have been just this particular evening that she wasn't wearing them. But when I went to see a dancer in a hotel, she was definitely wearing shoes. So it might have to do simply with preference.
I didn't know, because like I said, I was always taught that like that was a sign of your status if you had shoes, so I didn't know if maybe it was expected if you were, as a dancer, if you were dancing somewhere that you would be wearing shoes.
It might also, I mean, Lorna's also a foreigner, so there's a
That's
whole
true.
level
A
of
little leeway there.
there's a whole level of status that goes along with being a foreigner living in Cairo, especially as a dancer, because dancing is not a respectable profession in Egypt. It's something that you wouldn't want your family, you wouldn't want anyone in your family to do, you wouldn't want anyone to marry a dancer if it was in your family. You know, you certainly wouldn't marry a dancer if you were a man. And if you are a dancer, your options in terms of family life are very limited, unless the rest of your family is musicians or whatever, in which case you're part of that life, you know. It's in your blood and it's like being part of a circus family, you know. But if you're a foreign dancer, especially if you're from a country like the UK or America, then there's this whole idea about, well, she's probably crazy, but clearly she's not here to be a prostitute because she could make more money at home being a dancer. So, you know, but for example, dancers from Eastern European countries like Bulgaria, Romania, especially Russia, there's a lot of stereotypes about them. They have a hard time getting good gigs as dancers. Even though they're foreigners, there's a perception that they're coming there because they want to take something away. You know, whereas if you're a foreigner from a richer country, there's a perception, not necessarily that you'd be a better dancer, but that you're not there for those things.
Snag a rich husband or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, basically, you're not there for those purposes.
So would you say that it's easier, are more of the dancers in like Cairo right now, are more than like American or English?
No, there are a lot of Russian people living there. I mean, there are a lot of
I've
Russian
heard that
dancers.
there's a really large
Very large Russian
community there.
community.